I write a variety of stuff. But one thing that runs consistently throughout all of my work is that almost everything I write is a mystery of some kind or another. Even if I'm writing sci-fi or a fantasy or even a western, there's always some kind of mystery at the heart of it, something that characters are trying to find out, some secret revelation, that will form part of the story and part of the quest of the characters. And that's just, I don't know, to me, that's a natural way to tell a story. It's the natural shape of how I see stories. Um, so when I do then actually write crime, obviously that kind of takes precedence. That really comes to the fore, even more so than in other genres. I kind of actually had this idea many years ago, but it took me a while to figure out how to do it. So I mentioned that I have been playing games, both board and video games, pretty much my whole life. Um, when I was a boy, the choose your own adventure books and then the fighting fantasy books, if you remember those, the ones, where you roll dice to fight monsters and what have you, were being published. They were being published for the first time. They were a new concept. And that concept blew me away. I absolutely loved it. I played lots and lots of those game books, as we called them then. They actually led me to getting into role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, which I played for years. Like so much of my spare time as a teenager and as an adult was spent in role playing games. And I continued playing games, video games, I say as well. Pretty much my whole life. And then I, developed this career as a crime and thriller author. And I kept thinking, is there some way to combine these two things, especially given that I now also write video games. I've been doing that for the last 20 years. And I've got these two kind of parallel strands to my career. And I kept thinking, is there some way to bring them together? And the obvious answer, of course, is a game book. But who done it get well, crime and thriller game books are thin on the ground to begin with. Most game books are sci-fi, fantasy, or horror. Um, and who done it game books, the idea of a game book where you solve a mystery, they're really rare, really rare. And certainly nobody's done it quite like this, where it's aimed at a mainstream crime fiction audience, rather than at, sort of a horror audience or a sort of, sci-fi or fantasy audience. So I originally started thinking about doing it as a spy mystery because of Atomic Blonde and doing the Brigitte Sharp books. That's kind of what I was known for. But then I sort of, transitioned more into straight crime, as it were. And that was when I started thinking, oh, actually, maybe there's a way to do this that's just more straight crime focused. Um, and so I wrote some prototypes, sort of short story versions of, what the book became to test them out, sent them to some friends and said, what do you think? Is this any good? Is there anything here? They enjoyed them and said, yeah, and encouraged me. And so, yeah, I came up with a book length version, and that is Can You Solve the Murder, which is, as you say, an interactive novel with numbered sections, just like those old choose your own adventure novels. Part of the reason why this book takes place at an English manor house. Elysium is a wellness spa set in an English manor house. Part of the reason for that, to be honest, was to take advantage of the fact that it's a bit of a trope, that it is familiar to mainstream crime readers, because I was very aware that, you know, I and many of my friends and people like me, and maybe yourself, are familiar with the sort of how games work, and with things like role-playing games. But many people are not, especially older readers. And the mainstream crime fiction audience is mostly older people, sort of middle age and older. And so I didn't want to frighten them off, really. So that's why I made the mystery and the murder here in this first book, at least, is fairly, familiar to anybody who has read, a decent amount of crime fiction, because I figure they've already got enough new things to deal with in the interactive parts and figuring out how that works, taking notes, the clue numbers, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I wanted to use something familiar. As for actually designing the setting, the great thing about English country manor houses is that there are so many of them that you can pretty much have whatever you want. You know, you can design one to fit the story that you're writing, and it's plausible because there are so many of them and they're all in so many different shapes and sizes and they have different grounds and, you know, it's in different parts of the country. So it was in this particular case, I kind of worked backwards from what I needed for the story and then, you know, fitted that to Elysium and the setting of the manor house. So it was kind of plot requirements first and then building the setting to fit those requirements. In this book, the reader becomes the main character. That's the purpose of an interactive novel like this, is that you immerse yourself in the book. And so if you read the book carefully, you'll notice that the detective chief inspector, the character is never gendered, never named, never given an age or an ethnicity. It really could be anyone. Anyone at all that reads this book can insert themselves into that role because that's the purpose. You know, the reader is the one making the decisions about guiding the investigation and choosing which paths to take. Um, so the other characters become even more important in a way than in a regular book because there is effectively no main character. The main character is you. That's the point. So yes, the police that you know surround you are deliberately sort of built and designed to be memorable, you know, to have personalities and characters that stand out, especially as they will stay with you in future books as well. You know, the same police squad will be working with you. And the suspects and witnesses, you know, the NPCs, if you like, in this particular book are also all larger than life characters, so that they stand out and so they're memorable, partly because again, they have to be in this because they are suspects. And so I want the reader to really be able to remember them and categorize them and figure out, you know, who's who and what secrets they're hiding and be able to picture them at a moment's notice. So they're described very distinctly. They all have very distinct names, very sort of larger than life personalities. And that's, as I say, deliberate just so that they stick in your mind. Because the last thing you want with a book like this is for the reader to be, who is that again? I don't remember that character. Don't want that at all. So if anything, I kind of err on the side of, as I say, making them larger than life so that they're instantly memorable.